now know why the ending of Stranger Things was so horrible, and it's more than AI. After this documentary dropped that they've been hyping up, some stuff leaked which was really interesting. And you can see here there are screenshots of their computers and their tabs. And what does it show from the writers? They have multiple ChatGPTs pulled up, as well as Reddit. And what it looks like is that that's actually how they got the ending for Stranger Things 5. But it gets worse. The Duffer Brothers hadn't finished the finale or season 5 as they were filming it. In fact, they were writing episode 8 as they were filming it, and we think we know why. This is Ross Duffer, and this is his ex-wife, Leigh Janiak. They met in 2006 when one was an intern and one was a producing assistant, got married. A decade later, they ended up having their own individual success. However, in 2024, these two split, and this is where people think something shady happened. See, this beautiful woman went on to have a lot of success. She's not only a screenwriter, she actually directed the Fear Street series that was very successful on Netflix. And many people think that the series actually took a nosedive in season 5 because they got divorced and she wasn't around. Because a lot of people think she actually was the one that wrote Stranger Things. The theory is that at night, they would go home, he would talk about what's going on with the script, and she would actually clean it up, give him ideas, or even maybe write some of it herself to make it as good as it was. And when they were divorced, she was gone, and they floundered when it came to the writing. This is why the Duffer Brothers were completely unprepared. And really, we've heard this trope so many times throughout history. Throughout history, whether or not it's art or science, so many women will come up with something and their male husbands or counterparts will take credit for it and they get lost in the shadows. And had they not gotten divorced and had she been around when Stranger Things have actually ended in a much better way that the audience enjoyed? I don't know. What do you guys think?
This is my review of the finale of Stranger Things, so if you don't want spoilers now, fuck off. You got 3, 2, 1. Holy shit, I cried so much. That was a great ending to Stranger Things. I don't care what anybody says. I don't think anybody turned in a bad performance this entire season. I think just the haters are going to hate, and let them hate, and let's move on. This episode was about 2 hours and 5 minutes with like 3 minutes of credits. And for the first like hour and 25, 30 minutes, it was the whole battle. It was getting into the upside down, or it was getting onto the next plane once the planet smashed into it to get to Vecna's hideout, which turned out to be the Mind Flayer itself in what was an insane piece of visual effects between Kali and Max and 11 helping the kids escape right as they were going into the trance and then breaking free from Henry's control, and then he goes on a chase for them. He manipulates Hopper. Then it turns out that Hopper thought that he had shot 11. Then that turned out to be a trick from Vecna himself. For a moment I thought it was actually Kali doing it, but then we find out Kali's not really trying to screw her over at all. She's genuine, which was a shock and surprise, and made me feel just the slightest bit bad when she bit the bullet. Literally. Then we get the kids escaping into the desert to go into the mine shaft where
This is why I love the finale of Stranger Things. Spoilers for how the show ended, so if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to favorite this video and come back after you've watched it and share your opinion. There were things leading up to the final episode that I very much disagreed with. And before pressing play on the finale, I was able to sit down and accept all of its flaws, be in the moment enough to just sit there and realize, hey, this is the last 2 hours of a show that I really, really enjoyed for the last 9 years. And from that moment on, I was completely satisfied. There were so many things about the finale that I loved. I loved that Steve almost died, but Jonathan was the one to save him. I loved Will and Mike's best friends moment. I never liked Kali. I didn't really feel that much when she died. I loved how Vecna infected Hopper's mind. I love that Holly was brave enough to strike a blow on Henry. I love that Henry chose the Mind Flayer just like the Mind Flayer chose Henry all those years ago. I love that the final battle with the Mind Flayer and Vecna was everybody. Everybody was involved. Everybody contributed. It was perfect. That's exactly the way it needed to be. And those shots of 11 flying through the air into the mouth of the Mind Flayer was peak cinema. I was so happy that Joyce was the one to finish off Vecna's head. And I totally feel like while it was very predictable that 11 was going to sacrifice herself, I loved how they left her character. I love how they did it. I love how it's a question of whether or not she's alive or not. It was the way it was always supposed to be. And that epilogue, that final hour, perfect. The finale did what a finale I think is always supposed to do. No matter how you feel going up to it, the finale needs to make you feel satisfied. It needs to make you feel that you are leaving these characters and saying goodbye tied to these characters in a fulfilled place. And that's exactly the finale of Stranger Things considered a bad ending. In the final episode of the entire 5 seasons, the rating of the season 5 finale was the lowest, and in the documentary, the reason was finally revealed. First, why are there no other monsters in the abyss? One author even emphasized that it would be crazy if the abyss had nothing. However, this was Matt Duffer's response. Clearly, he did not take the author's opinion into account. Second, why does the finale feel so rushed? That's because they started filming without having finished the script. All they had was the idea of Eleven's ending, and they were just piecing everything else together as they were shooting. The production team was stressed out. They literally shot a portion of the final episode without knowing how it was gonna end. Third, the documentary confirmed that Conformity Gate was never real. When they got to that final table reading, the Duffer brothers said, "End series." So if anyone still thinks Conformity Gate is happening, it is definitely not. And the content of the documentary also proves what I said in my previous video. The Duffer brothers' IQ was not enough to come up with 2 different endings. If anyone was truly controlled by Vecna, it must have been the Duffer brothers. So, do you think the finale really was a bad ending?
Expose the Duffer brothers as to why this ending was so terrible? Take a look.
The whole episode has to be building towards Eleven's gonna kill herself. Like, if we're trying to sell it as she's gonna kill herself, and then she kills herself. Yeah.
I think that it's like, is she still deciding? Has she already decided?
You have to keep toying with the audience, because I think what works in 7 is this, like, oh my god. Like, is she really gonna go through with this? And it's what everyone's gonna keep expecting.
We think she's made the choice to live.
I don't know.
Just kidding, she hasn't. Just kidding, she
yeah,
has. Like, that's where
I don't know if we have to play it like that.
That is how.
So the Duffer brothers' really only main concern about this, remember, they didn't have the finale written. They were still writing the season as they were filming it, was not about having the plot holes come together, not about the Demigorgons, not about Vecna, the final battle scene, any of that. It was that Elle not only had to be unalived, she had to do it to herself. You know, this wouldn't bother me as much because I understand a lot of people were upset because once again, it's the trope that the traumatized girl just isn't allowed to heal and be here, and how upsetting that is because we see that so much. And I can agree with where people are coming from. However, I was somebody who said if it was done within the right message and the right artistry, I would understand their decision and I might even be on board. Here's my problem. The final battle already happened. Vecna is already defeated. So why on earth would we put her in a situation where she just decides, well, I guess this is just something I have to do. And here's more my issue. This is the concern you had and not everything else? Not everything else going on? This was in this? I can't help but say it feels like there's misogynistic undertones, because if this was the only thing you were sure about, you know, you cut out the whole fight scene with Mike and Vecna at the end that everybody really wanted to see, that would make more sense and actually answer more questions than what you did. No, it's just she has to go. And what message does that send? You didn't care at all about your series finale. You didn't care about making it good. You just wanted to make sure that once again, a traumatized young girl doesn't get to heal and needs to be sacrificed. So the person that went through all of the crap doesn't actually get to continue their story. And I want to know why. Why was this your focus and nothing else? And this is just proof there's misogynistic undertones with these two. And I don't use that word lightly. I don't want to come across like I'm being too woke, because that's not who I am as a person. But I cannot understand why this was pushed so heavily and we disregarded everything else. What do you guys think?